This house was built in 1891 by the Kincaid family. And then it was sold in 1907 to my great-grandfather, James Hardy Rhodes, who we called Candy Grandpa. I'm the one who named him that because he would give me candy. He liked me. He was a very hard-nosed old man and hard to get along with. But he liked me, and he'd give me candy, and he didn't give it to anybody else. He lived on the farm here till 1931 when my grandma bought, it was his daughter, Agnes Skaggs. His daughter, my grandma, he kept 5 acres off of land and built a house on it, an old cabin. And he lived down there on that 5 acres for a while. And that reduced the size of the property here to 75 acres, which it is today. And then in 1950, Grandma had moved to Redbird, the big metropolis nearby, and she sold it to my Uncle Gene, her youngest son, and he kept it about 2 months and sold it to Dad. And that was in 1950. And then Dad kept it until after his death in 96. And then Mom continued to live here. And then she finally sold it to my sister Joyce and her husband in 1996. And they're still the owners. There's been a lot of kids raised here. I was 9 when we moved here, and I'm the oldest of 8. My name is Gerald, but everybody all my life call me Jerry. There are a lot of buildings that are no longer here. Granaries and chicken houses. In the 50s, I think about 1957, we tore the old barn down. There was a wooden barn here. It had a big barn loft in it, and it was made out of oak lumber. Dad told us to tear the barn down. So me and my best friend John, we hooked one tractor to one end of the barn, put a chain up, then another tractor to the other end of the barn, and on the count of 10, we started pulling opposite. We pulled the barn apart, and it all collapsed in on itself. Well, Mom kind of wanted for us to save the wood because we burnt wood for heat here. Well, it was all square nails, and we couldn't drive them out. We couldn't. So my buddy Johnny and I, we were out there working on it, and there was some straw that had been in the hayloft. And John said, "You think that straw will burn?" I said, "Probably not. Is you got any matches?" So he said, "See if it'll burn." It was like throwing a match in gasoline, and it went up, and all of that old dry oak wood is burning. The flames were going higher than the trees out here. You know, leaves were withering and everything. You could roast marshmallows from the county road, you know. It was going, and hot, you couldn't get close to it. Mom looked out and saw it burning, and she come running out the door, running as hard as she could, yelling, "Put that fire out! Put that fire out!" John looked at me and said, "What are we going to do, pee on it?" Because we had no running water here. She said, "You wait till your dad gets home and he finds out you burnt that all up." And he looked at me and he said, "You did burn that barn, did you?" And I said, "Yes, sir, we did." He said, "Come outside, boy, I want to talk to you." We got outside. He said, "Was it a good fire?" Because he thought it was funny. And then we built a new barn. And then later a tornado took it out. And then the barn that's out there now just recently rebuilt. One time Mom asked my brother Bill, how many dogs you boys got? 22. We had a lot of dogs. We hunted a lot. We had bird dogs and rabbit dogs and coon dogs, all kinds of hounds and stuff. So my dad had got a new female beagle dog, and my mom was mad at him because he got another dog, and she came in heat, to be bred, and Mom said, we don't want that dog to be bred, and she told me to chain it in the barn loft so no dogs could get to it. In the loft, a lot of the flooring boards in the loft were not nailed down. They were just loose boards of random length and width, and we just stack hay on it. So Dad came home and he said, where's my dog? I said, it's out in the barn loft, because Dad wanted it bred to another hound that he had. Dad went out to the barn to get it, and he hollered, oh my God, look what happened. What the dog had done, she had scratched one of the floorboards up from the barn loft and tried to jump out. And when Dad went in the barn, his dog was hanging there dead because she was chained in there, and the dog was dead. We almost had a divorce over that. Dad's dog was gone. Well, there's a story about my brother Bill's pet goat called Pete. And Pete didn't know that he was a goat. He thought he slept with the dogs because he's the only goat we had at that time. And we were doing something outside, maybe building a new barn or something. Mom put a lunch out on the table, on the kitchen table. And when she went outside to call us to come and eat, and Mom loved Braunschweiger. And she had a big plate with lunch meat on it and Braunschweiger on the table. And when Mom came outside to call us in, the goat ran in the house. When she came back in the house, Pete, the goat, was standing in the kitchen table with his feet in Mom's Braunschweiger. And she knocked him off the table with a broom, I think it was. But Pete, later when we got a bunch of goats, Dad took Pete down there and put him in the pen with the goats, and he didn't know what they were. And we had, of course, the horses. We were always riding horses, breaking horses, and Dad loved to see you get thrown off a horse. And he would do things to get you thrown. Mom had 2 milk cows. And one day we were out by the barn and Dad said, have you boys ever tried riding those cows? No. Well, do you think you could ride them? Yeah, we can ride anything. It doesn't matter. So we got a rope and put around it like riding bulls and started riding those cows. We played rodeo for a couple hours out by the barn. That evening, when we came in, Mom had went out to milk, and the cows were all jumpy and nervous, and they wouldn't give down any milk. We're sitting at the dinner table, and Mom said to Dad, I don't know what's wrong with them cows, if the wolves have been after them or dogs have been chasing them, but there's something wrong with those cows. Well, there was a baby in a high chair. Mom turned to look to give the baby some food, and Dad looked at me and my brother and shook his head like this. He went, don't tell. Because we had been playing rodeo with Mom's cows all afternoon. It was a different world back then. When you lived here and you had no running water, no indoor toilets, you heated with wood. It was a different world.